NBA.com has them numbered 6 to 9.
Welcome to Orlando Magic Now. I'm Charles King here with Brian Schmitz, the Magic Insider. And for the next 20 minutes or so, we're going to talk about the Orlando Magic. And Brian, I thought that perhaps we'd come in here today and talk about the Magic on another long winning streak, but we're tripped up against the Atlanta Hawks last night.
Well, by the way, Merry Christmas, Magic fans. You're 15-12 and still in the playoff hunt, and it's a few days before Christmas time. But yeah, yesterday the Magic were looking for their first signature win in the Skiles era against the Atlanta Hawks. Of course, the Hawks won 60 games last year, and were in the playoffs, made a great revival of that franchise. But they're an experienced team, and they have 4 All-Stars. People forget about that. But Al Horford, Kyle Korver, Jeff Teague, and of course Paul Millsap, who the Magic tried to get in the offseason. And Magic made just way too many mistakes. Only made 13 turnovers, but just a lot of possessions, just came up with nothing and didn't get some loose balls they should have gotten. But hey, it came down to the last minute. Kyle Korver made a shot.
Yeah, they let Kyle Korver get hot. I think he was scoreless at the half, if I remember correctly. He scored all of his 19 points in the second half, 13 of them in the fourth quarter. And the Magic allow 103 points now, 0-8 when they allow 100 points. So that kind of shows it's almost like a magic number for them. But on the plus side in this game, despite all that, Harris and Oladipo combined to go 4 for 20 in the game, scored 4 points each. It was a bad defensive game. The Hawks shoot 50% from the field and from 3. But the Magic are still in this game. Had a real chance to win this game despite some of these bad stats. So it just shows that this team is capable of going toe-to-toe with anybody.
Well, really, and other than Korver, they did a pretty good job on most of the other guys. But that was such a busted play. Now Korver hit some wide open shots. You would think by then they would have figured it out. And when they went into the last huddle, Skiles told him, you have to stay connected to Kyle Korver. But you run guys through screens, and invariably somebody's going to shake free, and that was Korver. And Victor Oladipo, I mean, he was like waving at him, wait, don't shoot. And he popped it in with 44 seconds left. And then the other end, Oladipo committed a turnover. Paul Millsap got the ball, and that was the end of that. But yeah, of all really, they didn't play well, and it was 100-100 right down in the stretch. So it still shows how far chance up there when they played LeBron James. But they were right down in there, just couldn't come up with the right plays.
One interesting thing for the Magic, for only the 5th time
it's come. They've only been blown out once this year by the Cleveland Cavaliers at home, and probably didn't have
7 games. The Magic shot more free throws than their opponents.
Yeah.
So they got to the line
That's
24
an upset.
times, and they make them generally when they get there. Okay, so we're talking about the Atlanta Hawks game, a real opportunity for the Magic to pick up a signature win. Something that, if you really look at the schedule, the Magic do not have a lot of wins against quality opponents. In fact, of the 15 wins, only 3 are against teams with winning records, all in the East against Toronto, Boston, and Charlotte. And each of those 3 wins are pretty solid, but against the teams that are above 500. In fact, they're 3-7 against teams above 500.
Well, and actually the one that got away and that really hurts the Magic right now still is the double over.
The Magic are at least winning the games against teams like you say in their weight class this year, but have not been able to pull off a victory.
Oklahoma City. I mean, they really had that game won, but Russell Westbrook, he does what all-stars do. He came up with an incredible play, a 40-foot bank shot for a 3 that tied the game and sent it in regulation. And the Magic, of course, in the overtime, having to contend with 3 all-stars, Serge Ibaka, Kevin Garnett, and Russell Westbrook. It was just too much, and but they're coming. They really haven't. Cleveland, it's a bad matchup.
Sure.
As we can see, it's always a bad matchup against LeBron James. But Cleveland's physical, and when they want to play defense, they can really shut people down, and they really Magic really had a tough time offensively trying to get into their sets against Cleveland. So those are a couple of franchises that you don't really expect them. If they play a series, they may get 1, but those are really quality teams. Those are contenders.
They have been on the verge. I mean, they took the Clippers to overtime. They took the Rockets
Absolutely.
to overtime. I'm sorry. Josh Robbins wrote Saturday about Paul Millsap's free agency over the offseason and how the Magic offered him a max deal, and it got us thinking about what might be in store for this Magic team either before the trade deadline or this upcoming offseason or even next summer. And could the Magic really have a realistic shot of landing a top free agent? I like to think that this Magic team would be a premier destination for a top flight player, a very deep and young team. I would say the deepest team in the league without a star player, arguably. But the Magic haven't had a lot of success in luring big name players in recent years, or ever.
Well, they had one for about 8 years named Dwight Howard, and when you rebuild, it just takes a long time. And what you hope to do, what the Magic really hope to do, Rob Hennigan there, hope to get lucky, which they did in the Shaq and Penny era. They hope to score in the draft. And what really hurt them is not to get Andrew Wiggins in that one draft, or Jabari Parker, Joel Embiid. Those were the top 3 guys in that draft. Andrew Wiggins would have been the guy right now. You could have built around him. He's a guy you could go to in the fourth quarter. He's a flat-out scorer. But he ended up in Minnesota after the trade from Cleveland. And then Minnesota turned around and struck gold again, and they got Karl Anthony Towns, who's going to be an all-star for a lot of years. So those are 2 guys that got away from the Magic in the lottery, and that's what they've been trying to do the last 3 years, losing all those games. So now you got to do it the hard way. Can you get a free agent? Is this a free agent destination? And I think probably if you look at the list, obviously there's big-time players there. Dwight Howard, Kevin Durant, LeBron, and Dwayne Wade. They're not coming to Orlando. If they probably re-sign with their teams. I mean, Kevin Durant's a story, but he would have to find a really special situation to leave Russell Westbrook in Oklahoma City, even though it's a small market. And the other name's Al Horford, Paul Millsap's running mate. Are you going to have any better chance of getting Al Horford than you did Paul Millsap? Paul Gasol's a little old now. Chandler Parsons, Orlando kid, but plays really the same position that Tobias Harris and Magic just paid him. Harrison Barnes, I know that puts a twinkle in your eye. One of the Golden State players, but he's sort of the 4th option in Golden State. So what do you pay him?
Yeah.
I mean, he's
probably the same as Tobias.
Probably going to get the max salary the way all the salary caps are going through the roof. And Hassan Whiteside, the Miami center, who they're going to be unable to sign probably. And the other intriguing name, of course, for Orlando Magic fans is Ryan Anderson, who the Magic let go when they started this rebuild. And he's sort of the younger version of Channing Frye. And they're already paying Channing $8 million a year, and he has a couple more years left on his deal. So I really think the better free agent class, the Magic have a better chance in 2017. There's a whole list of guys, and you really, to get that impact player, Russell Westbrook, Blake Griffin, Chris Paul, Steph Curry, of course, who is not going anywhere, I wouldn't imagine. But so that's
most of those
kind of
guys
what you're
aren't
looking
great
at.
Fits either. I mean, either they're not great fits, or the Magic would probably have to overpay. So
well, they're okay with that.
And then
We know that. That's the Rashard Lewis rule.
Yeah, that's right.
We all know that can happen, and it's what you have to do.
And if you get the right guy who can, like Rashard Lewis, propel the team to the NBA Finals, then perhaps it's worth it. All right, let's talk about Scott Skiles now. The Magic having a better than expected year. I think most people would agree with that, and Scott Skiles seems to be the reason for that. And I think, okay, it's a little early to have this conversation. You wrote a little bit about Skiles yesterday and talked about how it's a very real possibility if the Magic keep trending this way that he could be the coach of the year.
Well, we're almost at the 30-game mark, so I think you can start the conversation and you can drop the green flag on it. If the award goes to the coach that's gotten the most out of the least, and sometimes it does and sometimes it doesn't, it just goes to the guy who has the flat-out best record. Yeah. But I would think that Skiles is on the pole, along with Stan Van Gundy from Detroit. Of course, everybody knows him in Orlando, and Steve Clifford with Charlotte, who was Stan's right-hand man when Stan was here with the Magic. Now, those 3 guys really have teams that don't have a lot of talent, but they're terrific X and O guys, and they get a lot out of their players. And even Detroit has Andre Drummond and Reggie Jackson, 2 pretty good players.
Yeah.
And Steve Clifford has Al Jefferson when he's not suspended. So, and he's a quality player. So arguably, they probably have a little bit better high-end talent than the Magic. So I go back to Scott, who his reputation is when he takes over, he's Mr. Turnaround. He gets guys to play the way that he wants them to play. Always defense first, disciplined offense, and he just wills these guys to play. If you don't want to play Scott Skiles basketball, you can do what we're doing. You can sit and watch. And these guys know it. They've gotten the message. They got it during training camp. So Skiles has done a terrific job so far. And, of course, obviously it's going to see if they can keep the momentum so they can stay around that playoff hunt.
The players certainly seem to have responded, and Skiles is fiery, and that wasn't something you could, not a word you could use to describe Jacques Vaughn.
No.
I looked it up. Scott Skiles is tied for the lead in the NBA in technical fouls. So
there you go.
He's a fiery guy. There's some proof.
I'll tell you what, it's funny, you bring that up, and the other night Scott got a technical foul, and he was hot about a call, and he thought that his guys were getting roughed up all night. And that is something that we didn't see a lot of from Jacques Vaughn for 3 years. Jacques was Mr. Cool, didn't want to ruffle any feathers, was mumbling under his breath all the time. I'm telling you, when you get a technical foul, your players know that you got their back. It's all a cliche, but they appreciate that. And also, you pick up the technical foul that maybe a player would have picked up. So then it gives them a little bit more leeway with the officials. They can grouse at them, and there was some lot of grousing Sunday at the Amway Center by both teams. Was not a very well officiated game, and the NBA can't find me for saying that.
Yeah, Fry picked up a technical foul in that game as well.
And when he spit on the court, he lost his mouthpiece on the floor and picked it up.
He did. He got a big applause from the crowd after dropping his
mouthpiece. That was
mouthpiece
the
on
5-second rule, wasn't it, guys?
Putting it back in his mouth. Everyone seemed to like that. Another guy I'd like to throw out, Frank Vogel, because the Pacers, with so many players lost.
Frank Vogel's got Paul George.
He does have Paul George. That's right. And when we're talking about Skiles as a potential Coach of the Year candidate, maybe just quickly we could talk about Oladipo now as a potential six-man of the year candidate. Some other players, Will Barton with the Nuggets.
Yeah.
Got a chance to see him when the Magic played. Jeremy Lin's had a resurgence with the Hornets. Ryan Anderson, who we talked about earlier, with the Pelicans, also playing pretty well this year. But I think if Oladipo continues in this role and the Magic continue to win, I think he would have a really legit shot at the award, despite maybe him not wanting to be in the role.
Well, yeah, he doesn't want to be a sixth man whatsoever, but he's going to have to be a lot more consistent to even get some consideration for that, because Victor has been up and down. And boy, the other night, not being able to keep track of Kyle Korver, and then the turnover.
2 for 11 shooting night.
And 2 for 11 shooting, and then the turnover at the other end of the floor. I mean, that does not help. And that's, even though you don't start, you can impact a game.
Well, he's playing 30-plus minutes.
Yeah, and that's what Skiles' message to him was all along. Look, you're going to be in position to make big plays, so make them. And I expect him to have a bounce-back game against the Knicks tonight.
Yeah, let's talk about that game now. The Knicks are 14-14, have won 4 straight games. They beat the Blazers, T-Wolves, and Sixers, all below 500 teams, before taking down the Bulls, who were playing on a back-to-back night after that 4 overtime game. And both teams have made improvements from last year. I think that's the common thread here. Is both teams were at the bottom of the East last year, and both teams are in the mix for a playoff berth this season.
Well, and Kristaps Porzingis, the rookie, he's the guy that the Magic had their eye on and had to end up taking Mario Hezonja. Porzingis, of course, it's New York, so you have to take it with a little grain of salt that he's the next Kevin Garnett. Okay, let's slow that down a little bit. But at 7'3", the guy has small forward skills, and is a lot tougher than most people thought. Now on draft night, Knicks fans booed him, and now they're cheering him wildly. And that, if you look at it right now, boy, that's just the kind of guy the Magic could use. A guy with length that can block shots, can also hit a three. So,
and would fit in a lot better with what Skiles wants to do. His even though his offensive game isn't refined right now, he's big. He can block shots and would fit in perfectly with what Skiles wants to do. The Knicks have won 5 of the last 6 games against the Magic in Madison Square Garden, so it's something to look for there. Maybe the Magic can get back on track. Magic have not gone on long extended losing streaks this year like they did last year often. Wednesday, the Magic will return back home to play the Houston Rockets, and whenever Dwight Howard comes to town, that still seems to be kind of a story, even though the boos inside of Amway tend to dwindle each time he comes. It's not quite as loud as the time before, but it's interesting with the Rockets coming to Orlando and Dwight Howard that there's rumblings about Dwight Howard's unhappiness again as they come here.
Never would have thought that, huh? Lakers, he was unhappy. The Orlando mess, that 3-ring circus. But I don't think anybody thought that Dwight was serious about staying with the Lakers because he was not going to put up with another year of Kobe Bryant. Right now, it's rough going in Houston for everyone, not just Dwight Howard. But the report was, of course, that Dwight was unhappy, that he's been playing second fiddle to James Harden on all fronts, commercials and on the court, shots, everything else. But the reason you hear trade rumors about Dwight is that he can be a free agent.
Yeah.
And it's not a surprise whatsoever because, Houston knows this too. Now, the question for the Rockets is the way they're playing. Do they give Dwight Howard, 30 years old and has a lot of miles on that body since he's been playing since he was 18 years old? Do you give him a max contract? You give him $120 million. Now,
And a max
somebody's going
contract
to.
next year is much different than what a max contract has been.
Absolutely. So, and with the league playing small ball, especially in the playoffs, Golden State has perfected that. How much is he going to be a part of the offense? And basically, in your salary cap, do you want to devote 25% to 30% to Dwight Howard? And it's going to be a tough call for Houston, and that's why all the trade rumors have started. And I think the one that you thought, and Chris Sheridan.com, thought that he will be traded to the Miami Heat for Hassan Whiteside and some change. Whiteside, of course, is just come out of nowhere and just making the minimum, so they're going to have to really massage that deal if it comes true. But it's going to be a tough call for the Rockets.
It's an interesting situation with Dwight Howard because on one hand, you think, okay, he's not the same player that he used to be. Don't want to overpay Dwight Howard long-term, potential injury risk in his age. But at the same time, Dwight Howard is still one of the best centers in the league and can really have an impact on a team, especially a team that's on the verge and maybe that piece away from making a run. Okay, so the Rockets have beaten the Magic 6 out of 7 times, but a real opportunity. Even though the Rockets have struggled, they have won 7 of their last 10 games.
Yeah.
I think that because of the Rockets' start, a lot of people think a little less of the Rockets than I think. They deserve more credit, I think, and I think they're still a dangerous team, but an opportunity for the Magic to get, would you call this the first signature win?
I don't think nationally that people would look at it as a signature win.
Because they're dropping random games here and there.
Yeah, just because the Rockets have just fallen out of favor with everybody. But when you look at Houston's roster, they have a lot of veteran players. I mean, not only James Harden and Dwight Howard, but Trevor Ariza, Corey Brewer. You can go up and down the line. They have solid veteran players. And I think this would be, you know what? Yeah, I want to call it a signature win if the Magic beat them. And the whole game Wednesday night is going to be James Harden. They got to keep him. They can't let him have a 40-point game. They can't let him parade to the free throw line 20 times. They can handle the rest of the guys. Vooch can handle Dwight Howard. You don't expect Dwight's going to get 25 or 30. Trevor Ariza, you have to keep him under control because he's become a very good three-point shooter. So, yeah, I would think that would qualify as the Magic's best win of the year.
So the Magic will complete the week Saturday against the Miami Heat. Hard to believe that the Magic have yet to play their in-state rival this year.
Yeah.
And the Heat have beaten the Magic 12 of the last 13. Of course, they had LeBron for most of those, but the Heat have still beaten the Magic 3 out of the last 4, even without Dwight. It'll be a home game, but hopefully for a change, it will not feel like a Miami Heat home game for the Magic because it feels like it inside of Amway almost every time they play Miami.
Well, and they've, even though they haven't beaten the Heat a lot, but they've played pretty good. They went to Miami, and they usually play better in South Florida for some reason. And Nick Vucevic has just killed these guys. I mean, he's gotten several 20-20 games against the Heat. Now, that was before Hassan Whiteside came on the scene. And last year, Vooch had a lot of trouble with Whiteside's length. So it's an interesting matchup. And, of course, depending on how Dwayne Wade feels, that's going to be a really nice matchup for fans to watch with Dwayne Wade and I would assume Victor Oladipo getting him most of the time.
So the Magic with 3 games this week, a little bit of a layoff between games this time. And again, just to recap, the Knicks tonight, the Rockets on Wednesday, and Saturday against the Miami Heat. So we'll see you following Christmas. We hope you have a Merry Christmas, and we'll be back next Monday with another version of Orlando Magic Now. Thanks for watching.